Hello, BookTube. This will be a non-fiction review. However, the book we're going to look at could be considered a reference work. You wouldn't need to buy it and think about reading it cover to cover necessarily. You could view it as, cue photograph, a gateway to further knowledge on the subject. So it would be handy to have on your shelves for a quick fact check or the odd casual browse because you're looking for what area you might need to or want to read more deeply. So for that reason, this video is probably going to be a bit shorter than my usual non-fiction reviews, but that's okay with me if it's okay with you, because I would prefer to err on the side of shorter videos. I think everybody needs more time than they actually have, right? Okay, so this is the work we're going to look at. It is The History of the World in Bite-Sized Chunks by Emma Marriott. It's 192 pages, of which only 169 are text. So that says something right away. Let's go straight into the first question. Can I summarize this book in a few sentences? Yeah, this is a slim, approachable world history summary that I believe could be useful in any one of three ways. Way number one, right? The last history you learned, let's say, was in high school. And that was either very slim amounts, or even if it was greater than slim, it wasn't very engaging. But now you would like to fix that. But where do you start? If you don't know what you don't know, where do you start? Well, I'm going to recommend this little book because I think it's perfect for getting you underway. It's in a form that isn't heavy. And by heavy, I mean it's not a great big fat heavy physical object, but also the text isn't heavy. The vocabulary and the style have been chosen for clarity, right? Not because they want to score points with an academic reading audience. And the font is a nice comfortable size. There's good spacing between the lines. I think there's a nice amount of white space around the page, right? So this book will not feel intimidating. Point two. Even if you did go on after high school to study history at undergraduate level or postgraduate level, it's inevitable you're going to specialize. You're going to know some areas of history far better than others. So I still recommend this tiny little book as a way of pinpointing where your knowledge is thin if you're looking to fill out those little gaps in your knowledge in your spare time. And three, this book would be great if you have a child who, like me, was very precocious, intellectually very, very curious. If I'd had this book when I was a child, it would have come off the bookshelf and I would have been paging through it and reading it, and I would have understood it. That's how straightforward the writing style is. Now, the back cover write-up is a little ambitious. It claims that you will be getting, quote, a pithy and comprehensive guide to everything you need to know. Well, okay, that's getting a bit carried away. Not everything. This little book scratches the surface of everything. And the handy thing about that is you now know exactly where you need to dig deeper. Next question. What is known about the author? Emma Marriott was an in-house editor for Pan Macmillan in London. Currently, she's working independently as an author, a ghostwriter, and also, as you can tell, a project manager for works of popular nonfiction like today's title. I'm going to put a link to her website in the description box of this video because there's a lot of other interesting titles that she's been working on that you might also want to check out. Question three, how is this book structured? I think structure is a strong point in this book. Of the 169 pages, there are 6 chapters, and I'm going to show you how they're laid out right now. So you can see that each one, I think they average about 26 pages, and they cover a date range. And obviously, as we move through the book, you can see too that you need the same amount of pages to cover less history. That makes sense. We've just got more records about more recent history than we do about more ancient history. And within each chapter, there are sections. Sections about a page long each, and they touch down on different parts of the world, on major events in those parts of the world, the dates that are connected with them, and a few significant names if those names are known. And then at the back of the book, there is a bibliography of other world-spanning history books and a subject index. Question 4. Why did I choose to read this book? Well, my high school history offering was thin. The only compulsory courses were Canadian history. There were some electives that would take you into a bit of Western European history, but I got to stress, Western European history really meant English. There was a great deal of stress on the English viewpoint and the English experience. So that left me with a load of gaps, and pretty much everything I know about history I've taught myself by reading. But there's a flaw in that, isn't there? Because the books that I might get to read appeal to me because I already know a little bit about the subject as opposed to nothing, or I accidentally find out that there's a great big gap in my knowledge and then I go picking a book to fill it. What I hope this little volume would be to speed up the process of finding all those gaps. Question 5. How did I get this book and how much did I pay? I bought a new paperback copy from my local Waterstones, and that cost me £7.99. That would be US dollars, $9.86. I did notice, however, that Amazon are offering the book free if you are a Kindle Unlimited subscriber. If you buy the ebook without subscription, it costs £4.99 or US dollars, $6.16. Question 6. Have I encountered anything unusual or interesting about the book? Well, I can understand why, in the interest of keeping the book brief, there aren't actually many maps. And the ones that the book does have, they're just in black and white. I think maps are crucial when you're studying history, especially if the topic is new to you. In my geography, if we're talking about Central Asia or Central America, it's not very good. I would want maps. People who need bite-sized history probably also need bite-sized geography. I think that's a good rule of thumb, yeah. So what I do have at the end of this review is suggestions for links that will provide some good sources of maps. Question 7. Is there anything readers should be prepared for if they decide to read this book? Well, I'll just say again what I said from the start. Stress that there is no need to read this book from cover to cover necessarily. If you have a memory like mine, you won't retain most of those facts anyway. It's a reference work. It's a springboard to further learning elsewhere. That being said, you could take an approach where you regularly reread it, just because it would always surprise you with the facts that you forgot from a previous reading. Question 8. Is there anything else interesting to know about this book? Well, not about the book as such, but I was surprised to realize that this bite-sized chunks format has grown into a genre form of its own. So if you go into Amazon and you type in their search window bite-sized chunks, you'll see a whole selection of books, not just on history, but other subjects as well. So let's say a topic that only gets a chapter in Emma Marriott's book here gets its own book. I'll use one example. There is a bite-sized history of the 20th century, and I think that would be a second good reference purchase because, let's face it, so much happened in that 100 years. Last question. Everybody, any suggestions for related or follow-up reading? Well, here's where I direct you down, please, to my description box, because I put 3 links in there that I think are very good sources. 2 for maps. I want to recommend a YouTube channel called Ollie Bye, which got some fantastic time-lapse studies of maps throughout history, so you can watch maps change as time passes. Fascinating site, must go see. And also, of course, I've got to recommend the National Geographic map database if you need some really good maps. Now, if you're looking for the next history book you might want to read, I know all these lists are subjective and arbitrary, but listmuse.com has done a compilation of the 100 best history books of all time. So, okay, tongue-in-cheek, but I still found there were a lot of really good titles there. I think it's worth checking out. Okay, we are summing up. I see history in my own head like a timeline, kind of like the ivy growing along this wall that you can see in the photograph. It's a wonderful mental resource because it means that if anybody mentions an event in history, I can kind of make sense of it by plotting it on my existing timeline. But what if you have no line? Or what if it's more like patchy spots rather than a line? Or if you have a memory like me, things fall out. So I think a book like Emma Marriott's The History of the World in Bite-Sized Chunks is going to be so handy to just pull out and fill in any gaps. Okay, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to do some more recording today, so look out for another sideline video where we will talk about Kenneth Grahame's The Wind in the Willows. You'll remember that if you've been watching Coffee Breaks. That's the book I tried and tried to finish and could not when I was younger. I set myself a challenge now and I finished it. So I want to examine why I believe I had trouble with the book earlier and what I think about the book now that I finally finished it. Good to see you again, everybody. Click like if you enjoyed this video. Click subscribe if you want to know when that sideline about The Wind in the Willows is coming out. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.